So this video might be either very controversial or not so controversial. It entirely depends on the general player base view on Escoffier and her design. But before I actually begin, I want to say one thing. I do not dislike the design. I just feel like with one single change, she would have been made to fit the designs of Fontaine a lot better. Because right now, from the front, it actually looks really good. But the moment you go and look from any other side, it looks like all she's wearing on her top side is an apron with the design of a chef's jacket, and that is it. And to me, personally, I like it, don't get me wrong. I feel like characters being hot is not a problem, especially since we're talking about the gacha game space, right? They have to sell their characters, and I think, as we all know, sex sells. That is just the straight up truth of this whole thing. But they could have still made her hot, while still holding a design that fits both with her fantasy, but also with the other characters from Fontaine. Again, I want to make it clear, I do not dislike the design. I really like her character, I really like her, the way she looks, I like her kit, she's really good. My Wriothesley team is finally actually good, because I built most of the characters in a proper way rather than just slapping on whatever I have. And in general, I pulled for her because I wanted her, right? It wasn't because of meta or anything like that. Of course, Skirk's coming out and everything, but yeah. I just want to make it clear that I do not dislike it. I just feel like I just have a little nitpick with her design. So let's begin with the fantasy of being a chef, especially what seems to be a Michelin star chef, as a lot of people are comparing her to Gordon Ramsay. And it's quite a funny thing, because she is blonde, well, sort of blonde, I'd say, and she is a very well-known chef and has a similar temper to Gordon Ramsay. I haven't played the story quest yet though, but yeah. What I'm talking about the fantasy is that she looks like a stripper, right? She has the influences of a succubus because of the tail, but that's just a tool that she uses for cooking, from what I've understood. But she doesn't give me the chef vibes, other than really her hat and the design on the front of the dress, because it looks like a chef's jacket. But then you have her entire arms, back, and like sides being, you know, uncovered. But then a chef deals with an environment where there's a lot of hot oil, boiling water, foods that are very hot that could lead to burns. Which I'm like, well, if you want to have this as a design, why not give her burns on her arms to, you know, sell the fact that she's not wearing a proper jacket. So yeah, that's my main nitpick with the fantasy, that she's not wearing an actual chef's jacket. And you guys might be like, oh, but then she would be covered up, she wouldn't be hot anymore. I wouldn't say so. Part of her hotness is, of course, the bottom part of her design, you know, the high laced stockings and everything, and the short skirt. And you could still have the top part of the design be sexy by having a very tight on the body chef's jacket. You could either go for a long or a short sleeved jacket. I feel like short might fit a bit better. And you could have a jacket that would be very, as I said, tight on her body, which would still emphasize the shaping of her breasts, while just actually giving her a proper chef's look. Again, as I've said, this is a personal nitpick of mine, but it's also something that I feel like kind of takes away from her being a Fontaine character. Because while the Fontaine characters are, most of them are still hot and everything, a lot of them still go for sort of a design philosophy that first takes on the high fashion sort of part of, well, the Fontaine life, because it's based on France. And I feel like Escoffier kind of doesn't fit in that same sort of high fashion thing because of the way her top is done. Because it feels like she was generally designed more with selling the character through her looks and the fact that she's hot and everything, rather than selling her through, you know, the fact that she's, you know, she's a Fontainian, she's a cryo unit, she's really good support for cryo and whatnot. Now, I will talk about the characters from Fontaine right now and go over their design and just talk a bit about them. The splash arts on the screen so that you guys can also look at them at the same time. So these will be in whatever order I found them on the wiki. So let us start with Charlotte. Now, Charlotte does still have a very sexy design for the character. But when you really look at it, the only real thing that doesn't necessarily fit as much is Hoyo's like weird obsession with giving characters like not connected sleeves and having their shoulders exposed, which is something you can actually see a lot in, like, for example, Jean, as a very early character of the same sort of design philosophy. Her general design and the way her clothes look screams a lot of like semi-steampunk / Fontaine kind of thing, you know, with the mechas and everything. It does scream like she could also be a mechanic rather than a photographer, right? For Chevreuse, the only real thing I could say that goes sort of against this whole like, oh, the characters aren't overly hot, is the fact that her like the bottom part of her skirt gives a lot more Liyue vibes, you know, with Liyue having that one long piece going down in the middle and nothing really on the sides. But again, it's not really something that you would be like, oh, this really does not scream Fontaine. Then there's Clorinde, which just straight up comes at you with what you would think a generic police officer would look like. Of course, not what you would think a police officer would be while on duty in the field, but something that sort of a police officer / duelist would be dressed in, you know, a short mini skirt, and very elegant. That's the main point I feel like this whole Fontaine thing is. It shows a lot of the elegance of the character. Then comes Emily, which does have that high-cut dress, but again, the high-cut dress does make sense from a fashionista style sort of point. I don't really have anything to say about Feminine. Usually men at most, they have exposed legs, but I wouldn't say that necessarily yells sexy or overly sexualized. So yeah. Farina, weirdly enough, goes with the same sort of design choices as Feminine, which is interesting, just having a well-dressed character with very short shorts and of course exposed legs because of that. But again, there's nothing really that yells over sexualization in this design. Of course, there's Linny and Lynette, which are, I would say, the most sexualized looking characters when it comes to Fontaine. But there is a reason. For Lynette specifically, is the entire thing of the magician's assistant looking really well, really good and sexy, so that she can distract the audience so that the magician goes ahead and is able to do the tricks. That's actually a thing that happened in real life with magicians of old. Right? They had a really hot assistant so that they could more easily do things. Now, Linny, weirdly enough, goes in the same sort of direction as Lynette and also has what you would call a sexy design, which is an interesting point, moving away from how magicians were dressed, usually in a full normal costume, with their hat, of course. But I feel like this is also a reason because they both work together on the magic tricks. It's not like one is the magician and the other is the assistant. They both are part of the spectacle and they both are assistants to each other. Now, Navi has a very short skirt and again exposed shoulders, but I really do not think that takes away from the design, because her design overall of her dress is so intricate and so high-end fashion, I would say, so fashionable, that I think it still gives in to the type of design that you would see in Fontaine. And then again, we've seen short skirts / kimonos, especially kimonos in Azuma, for a very long time when it comes to Genshin. So I think it's just a general design take that Genshin does in order to sell their characters the same way, you know, so many characters have bare shoulders. And then we have Neuvillette and Wriothesley, which are just dressed in full-blown costumes. I don't really think you can really take too much. Of course, we all know about Wriothesley's cake, but it's covered up most of the time, so I don't think we should talk about it. And lastly, I have Sigewinne, which is a short character, and usually short characters aren't really too much dressed in a sexy way, because a lot of the time they are actual children. or children adjacent, which is very understandable. Please, Hoyo, don't do that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can kind of see why I was saying that looking from the front, Escoffier fits very well within the design philosophy of Fontaine. You have a very high-end looking fashionable dress that looks like a chef's jacket, so it sells the fantasy of a chef. You have the laced stockings, which sells which again works really well within, I'd say, Genshin in general and what characters wear, but also a lot of the characters in Fontaine have thigh-high stockings and everything. And you have the bare shoulders that you've seen in like Navia, Chevreuse, Charlotte, etc. But then you turn the character around and you see that everything else on her top side is like out there and showing and just bare. There's nothing really there, which breaks, in my opinion, the illusion that the front view kind of created of her. Now, if they would have made everything like covered, sure, I still think it would have been a good design. It would have fit a lot more in her fantasy, and it would have fit a lot more into the Fontainian characters. Do I have a problem that they didn't? As I said at the beginning of the video, no. I still enjoy Escoffier's design. I still enjoy the sexy designs of Genshin. I genuinely do not think there's any character that I currently have, or well, in Genshin in general, that I just dislike. Because I'm just not a very nitpicky, well, I am a nitpicky kind of person, but I'm not the kind of person that would dislike something because they don't like a part of the design. Because, again, I have the nitpick with Escoffier. I just really enjoy all the characters and the way they look and their kits. Otherwise, I wouldn't have pulled for the ones I just showed up there. So, in conclusion, should Escoffier be censored? Oh, heck no. Well, I really do not like the fact that Genshin was even censored to begin with. Who cares how big Rosaria's breasts are? That Jean had her shoulders shown, even though I think they're shown in her in the new design as well. What was even censored for Jean is my question now. Oh, because she was showing too much skin on the front, bruh, really? Anyway. And of course we know that the booty shorts for Amber, and then who else was censored? There was another character, but I genuinely cannot remember right now. But yeah, I do not want censorship for Genshin, because I feel like, well, it's a gacha game, it sells hot characters, it's supposed to sell hot characters. Would she have fit better in Fontaine and as a chef in her fantasy if she had the full chef's jacket? I feel like she would. So what I want you guys to take away from this video is more of a different kind of lesson. The lesson that you can still like a character while not liking a portion of them. Something being meh about a character is not bad. Her not having a full chef jacket is not bad. In my opinion, it's more like a meh kind of thing. A character having a meh part doesn't mean that you should hate the whole character. It doesn't mean that you should attack the whole fandom of that character or anything like that. People have different preferences, and we need to learn that, because Genshin's fandom, the bits I've seen from Twitter and other social medias is insane, but I feel like Genshin fandom is supposed to be a whole different kind of video than me mentioning it. But yeah, I feel like we should really just have everyone be able to state their opinion without attacking them, while also each of us enjoying what we enjoy. If I say that I don't fully like Escoffier's design, doesn't mean that you can say I love it and I want it. Well, that's it from me for today. If you guys have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment, or even subscribe? I want to thank you guys for watching and hope to see you all in the next one.